In this episode, we will take a closer look at the Business Application Studio and the functions we will need for further work. We will create our Fiori Elements application and make some adjustments using guided development. Once we are finished, we will deploy it to the ABAP environment. Before we can begin working in the Business Application Studio, we first need to create a dev space or reuse an existing one. For this project, we will start with a new dev space, since you most likely don't have one yet. We create a new one using Create Dev Space. In the next screen, you can choose between the various basic versions and additional extensions that we want to use. To begin with, the standard Fiori version is sufficient for development. We need to give the dev space a name. In this case, we will use the company name. The dev space is then created and started immediately, which should take just a few minutes. Once the space had the running status, we can start our development environment by clicking on the name. After confirming the terms, we will first clear all windows before starting work. Now we want to generate our Fiori Elements app. To do this, we will go directly to our project directory via the menu. Under File, you will find Open Folder and select the appropriate path there. Under Home and User, you will find Projects. We will go there, as this is where every Fiori application is normally created. The website will now reload, and you will find the Explorer where the folder was selected. Next, we can start the generator. For this, you will find the New Project from Template option in the menu under File, which starts the wizard in the Business Application Studio. There we select the sub-Fiori generator to start the project. The next step is to select an appropriate template. The currently available floor plans are available here. In most cases, the list report page will be used, as it is most likely like the ALV output. Now it's time to fill the essential information. For this, we select our OData service as the source. To do this, we connect to the system and select the ABAP environment from the destinations. Next, all available OData services are determined, which we can then select from the list. You can also start typing the name, which will then filter the list. After selecting, select the main entity with which our application should start. If there are additional compositions here, we could also select another entity for navigation. Under Table Type, you will find various types to get you started. The responsive table is the default. This means that only the fields that fit on the screen are displayed. The grid table is similar to an ALV. All fields are displayed side by side, creating a scroll bar. It's not necessarily mobile friendly, but it loads all information and displays it in the list. If you have a hierarchy as an entry point, you can use it to create a tree view directly. The analytical view starts directly with the view to create or display an analysis. Now we come to the project attributes. Here we define the name of the project. This is created as a parent folder and is available in Explorer. You will find the application title later in the Launchpad in the navigation at the top when the app is open. You usually need a unique combination as a namespace. In most cases, the company's domain is used here, for example. The namespace and the module name together must be unique later. Optionally, we can also specify a description for the app. In the lower section, we can specify whether, for example, we want to define the project as TypeScript. We also want to create the deployment configuration and the Launchpad configuration. In the deployment configuration, we define which objects will later be deployed where. If you don't just want to test, you definitely need this configuration. In this case, we want to deploy directly to the ABAP system as a BSP application. The ABAP repository is 15 characters long and is the BSP artifact that we will find later in the system. The deployment description is optional. Next, we specify the target package and the transport to which the deployment will be performed. It's important to specify the transport, not the task. To ensure that the tile is displayed in the Launchpad, we need this configuration. The title and subtitle will later be displayed directly on the tile when we integrate it into the Launchpad. The semantic object and the action together must also be unique and will later serve as the navigation to the actual application. You can enter anything as the semantic object. For the action, you usually use the actual action, such as manage or display. For example, what the app actually does with the data. Via the Finish button, we start the application generation. The artifacts and structures are created and the necessary modules are installed. Once generation is complete, we receive the application information, from which we can directly perform further actions. After the generation is finished, first let's start the application as a preview. For this, you will find the preview application option in the common tasks area below. After clicking, you have to decide how you want to start the application. With the first option, the application is started without mock data, and we use the data from the ABAP environment. The application is started in a new tab in the browser. If this isn't the case, check whether the pop-ups are blocked in your browser. Here you must allow the action for the Business Application Studio. Now let's run the application using Go, then our data will be loaded. This is also the first point we want to change. The user should see the data immediately when they open the application. To do this, we will find the Open Guided Development point in the Common Tasks. A new point will open where we search for Autoload. In the List Report page area, we find the option for Autoload. By clicking on this point, we go to the guide and start it. In the lower part, we select the option for Autoload and change it from Auto to Enable, to always enable Autoload. To implement the change in the project, we must click the Insert Snippet button. Then the settings will be adopted into the configuration. We can see this because the corresponding configuration file has been opened. We can now close the wizard and return to the application. If we now refresh the application again, the data should be loaded directly, and manually selecting the Go button is no longer necessary. Let's take a look at the structure of the Fiori application. For this, we switch to the Explorer on the left and open our current project folder under Projects. Here we'll find the basic structure of the project. In the lower part, you will find the UI5 deploy YAML file. This file contains our deployment configuration, which we previously defined in the wizard. If you want to adjust any settings later, such as the package or transport, because it has already been released, you can do so here. In the web app folder, you will find the necessary files for your application. The manifest.json is the most important file of the project. Here you will find information about the service used, the application, the page structure and navigation, and also the Launchpad configuration. Furthermore, we will find additional folders containing the annotations, where local project annotations are stored. The file is usually quite small and the annotations are pulled from the service. This has the advantage that we don't have to redeploy the project if there are any changes to the names or fields that we have added. If you right-click on the web app folder, you will find many other project functions. Here, for example, you can directly start the application preview or call up the application info. Other points include guided development and the data editor. Using the page map, we can see the structure of the current application and could, for example, create differential navigation if we have more compositions in the project. Here you can also make further settings, for example, switching to the flexible column layout. Now let's go back to the application info to deploy the application. There you will also find the deploy task, which we will now execute in the next step. Since we have already stored all information, the deployment for the ABAP environment starts immediately. We must confirm the deployment again with Y after receiving a brief summary. Depending on the size, deployment may take some time. If you see the deployment successful message at the end, then we are done for now. We can now switch to Eclipse and refresh the Fiori folder. 4 objects have now been made available in the system. The BSP application is the actual Fiori application with all the files we saw in the Business Application Studio. The Launchpad app descriptor item is the Launchpad configuration we configured in the project. We also find the 2 SIGF nodes that have now been activated. We can now access the app and need 2 endpoints for this. Today we took a look at the Business Application Studio and the creation process for a Fiori Elements application. We made some adjustments to the app and finally installed the application on the system. Next time we will integrate the application into the Launchpad, configure pages and spaces. Until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.